Today is a great opportunity for everybody engaged in teaching, especially teachers. With a great trainer, this is an opportunity for teachers to go to the right path, to choose the right direction, and to get the correct guidance and the training. Could you please introduce yourself and what do you do for business?
Hi, my name is Knikki Hernandez, and I'm a teacher. And I'm going into my 8th year of teaching this year. And also, I train other educators in a wide variety of subjects. I train them in communication, how to communicate with parents, how to communicate with students, how to communicate with administrators in an effective way, because all those people are processing information very differently. So you have to communicate differently. And then I also train them on how to get the most out of your students in the lesson plan, how to help them have motivation in the classroom, how to have the students have a bigger purpose in your classroom, how to manage your classroom effectively and deal with the conflicts and the problems that arise. So I work with teachers on a wide variety of topics, but most of this information is, interestingly enough, related to the generations, the differences between the generations. You've got millennials, I'm a millennial, you have Gen Xers, you have Gen Z, and because everyone is processing information so differently and we're bumping shoulders with each other all day, it's imperative that we know how to communicate with each other, especially in this day and time when there are so many obstacles and roadblocks towards communication. So that's really the foundation of what we do here. And I try to just implement that and model that in my classroom every single day and help other teachers have success in their classrooms as well.
So what is your website?
So right now I'm in construction. I'm just starting to build a website, but if people want to get in touch with me, they can email me at turningthetideteachables@gmail.com, or they can go on my Facebook page and look up Knikki Hernandez. So you should be able to see my name. And then I also have a Facebook group. It's public Facebook group, and it's called Turning the Tide Teachables. So they can email me, they can friend me on Facebook, or they can go to my Facebook page. And then as soon as I get my website up and running, we'll have that.
What is the tide? What do you mean?
So what I mean by the tide is that, if you're in the ocean going for a swim, or maybe you're floating in a little, you're just floating in the water, right? Well, when the tide goes in and goes out, before you even realize it, that tide can pull you very far, very deep into the ocean before you've even realized it, right? And it happens little by little by little. And so there may be situations for each teacher. It's personalized. It's going to be different for everybody. But there may be situations that are putting you in the wrong direction, or that are pulling you in the wrong direction, right? And so what we want to do is we want to take the tide and turn it in a different direction so that teachers are facing the light, so to speak. They're headed in a more positive and productive direction for their classrooms, for their personal lives, with their families, all these different types of things. And so that's what I mean by turning the tide, so that the tide's not taking us in this wrong direction, it's taking us in the right direction.
And is it the same approach for every teacher?
No, definitely not, because every teacher is so different. I've worked with one teacher from California who had sort of a language barrier. And for her, she had to fill out a ton of paperwork and use legal jargon and state language and things like that. And she also wanted to apply to this one teaching program. So I coached her on how to get into this teaching program and fill out her paperwork appropriately. So we got that done. We worked with her. She was great. And then I worked with another teacher who primarily had issues with classroom management. So we worked with her. We got her to a point where she's very stable in her classroom. She's got, control. She's got stability. She has a good flow, right? Everything goes smoothly in her classroom now. So I work with her. And then another teacher that I'm currently working with, she is teaching 100% virtually. And she needs information and insight about pedagogy in the virtual world. How do I teach? How do I deliver this information in a way that's going to reach my students? How do I know that they're receiving it? How do I know if they're participating in class? How do I know that they're learning what I'm teaching them? Those types of things. So every teacher has different needs. And so I work with them and I give them very tailored coaching to their individual and unique situations.
And how do you deal with motivation?
That's a great question. So motivation on part of the students is an interesting phenomenon, because as a millennial, so like we were talking about earlier, everything has to do with the generations, right? So as a millennial, I'm teaching Gen Z students. Gen Z actually does not have as much in common with millennials as you might think. Most of Gen Z actually has more in common with Gen X, which are my parents and some of their parents. And the reason why is because their parents are Gen Xers. Now, there are some kids who have parents that are millennial parents, so they are going to obviously be more like millennials because their primary influence, is their parents. So depending on whether you had an Xer parent or a millennial parent, your values and your motivation is going to be very different, right? So for Gen X in general, though, one thing that they do have in common with millennials is that they are cause oriented, meaning they care about social causes, social movement, social justice. That's what they focus on. They love that piece. So in our classrooms, we want to maintain a balance between academics and textbook work and grammar and those types of things. We want to maintain a balance between that while also incorporating social equity in our classrooms, and also, giving the students sort of an open forum to discuss their concerns, to discuss their ideas, their opinions, and their thoughts. Gen Z is going to be very appreciative of that. They're not going to take too kindly to being silenced, right, in the classroom. They do not like that at all, and they're going to buck that. They have a natural distrust of authority, and that is because they've seen what the world is like in terms of authority figures. And so they buck that pretty quickly. So as the teacher, you still have to maintain boundaries. You still have to be the authority in your class. You can't just abdicate that, right? Abdicate your position and say, okay, kids, do whatever you want. You can't do that. You still need boundaries and structure, but how do you do it in a way that's going to resonate with the kids, in a way that they're going to understand, that they're going to appreciate, and that they're going to respect is key. And then in terms of maintaining their motivation for academics, right, that all goes back to the open forum, the discussion of things like culture, the discussion of things like people, things that are relevant in the world, things that are happening in the world now and today, right? Incorporating that in our classrooms is really going to help maintain the students' focus, attention, and motivation. And so through my coaching program, the students, the teachers that I work with have a chance to kind of learn exactly how they can do that in their classrooms.
Could you explain more about the how? How can they do this in the classroom?
Yeah, so one way, again, is the open forum, giving the students the opportunity to really have a voice in the classroom, which is great, right? But one thing that I really like to discuss in my class, for example, I'm a Spanish teacher, is culture. And Gen Z, they love learning about cultures. And I also like to teach the etymology of words and the linguistical reasons why words are what they are and why this word is pronounced the way it's pronounced. And talking about those small things, like linguistically, makes a huge impact because it sort of opens their eyes. It's not about, handing them a vocabulary list to read and memorize. They really gain a clear understanding of the world around them through learning about culture, through applying it, and also through the vocabulary. Because as you know, vocabulary is your ability to see, right? It's your ability to, the words that you have, your vocabulary, your level of vocabulary is your ability to see the world clearly. And if you don't have an understanding of words, how to break up words, how to see words for more than just their dictionary definition, then you don't really have a strong ability to see. And after 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years of not being able to see very well, you can imagine how frustrating that is for those individuals. And not only that, but your words are also your ability to communicate what's in your heart, what's in your soul, what's in your mind. So if you can't see very well because you don't have the vocabulary, and you also can't express yourself, you're kind of trapped in your own body, so to speak, right? And that can result in very problematic behavior, right? Because the people are frustrated, especially over time. And so that's one of the hows, in terms of how I teach is I focus on those types of things so that my students can start to see the world more clearly.
Could you explain more about the differences between generations and how they affect education?
Yes, absolutely. So I was just having a conversation with some of my administrators at the school today, and we were talking about communicating with parents. And so millennials and Gen Xers, they want different things, right? Gen Xers, they want facts, they want specifics, they want step-by-step instructions on how to do things. They want step-by-step instructions on what's happening next. They like clearly defined boundaries and order, right? That's the Xer generation as a whole. Millennials are a little bit different. Millennials don't do well with a ton of structure. I know because I am a millennial. I by no means represent all millennials, but I do know that a lot of millennials struggle when things are too structured, right? And also, millennials don't really care about specifics. They're big picture people. They're big idea type people. They don't need to know the step by step by step by step. They don't need to know that. It's not that they don't need to know it. It's just that they don't really put a ton of emphasis on it. And so what they really care about is feelings. They care about emotions. They care about feelings. They care about having a purpose. They care about having an impact. They care about, you know, being able to influence something and give their input, and they care about being part of the solution, right, to the problem. That's what they care about. And so when you communicate with millennial parents, for example, your communication to the millennial, they have to feel the purpose behind it before they connect, right? And for an Xer, it's not like that. They don't necessarily need to feel the purpose because they're going to support you as long as you have your ducks in a row. If you have your ducks in a row and you have your facts and you've got your facts straight and everything in order, then they will support you. So it's very different with millennials and Gen Xers as far as the parents are concerned. So now in the environment where we're talking about colleagues, we're not talking about communicating with parents. For example, I work with a lot of Gen X colleagues. And we have, I think, one millennial, or two, including myself. We have 2 millennials in my department. Well, when I communicate with a Gen Xer, and let's say I need help with something, I know that Gen Xers love to help people. They're fix-it people. They want to fix problems. That's who they are. And so if I have a problem or if I need a lesson plan or an idea about something, I'll go to a Gen Xer teacher and I'll say, hey, can you help me with this? And they light up and they're like, yes, I want to help you, because that's how Gen X are. That's how they are, right? Now, for a millennial, it's a little bit different. Millennials don't really like to share their stuff. They're territorial over their stuff. Gen Xers are not. Gen Xers they'll give you all the lesson plans that they have, right? They'll go into their filing cabinets. They'll pull out all their worksheets. Here you go. They'll give you everything. But the millennials are a little bit different. They're more territorial over their stuff. And especially if they've worked hard to create it, they want to keep it close to the vest, so to speak. And so when I need help and I go to a millennial, I have to reframe my message differently. And so instead of saying to a millennial, can you help me? I'll say to a millennial, I need your help. 2 different emotions there. The millennials, they want to give you input. They want to put their influence on things. They want to give you suggestions and ideas. So when I say to a millennial, hey, you're doing this really amazing thing in your classroom, I'd like to be able to do it too, but I need your help in terms of being able to execute it in my classroom. What do you think, right? And the millennial's gonna light up because they're not just handing you resources, right? Which they don't want to do. They're putting their influence and their stamp on your class and in the way you teach. That's what they want. So it's very different for all the generations, and being able to manage that and communicate effectively with each generation in terms of how they process information, what they need to feel good, what they need to feel appreciated, all those types of things. That's really important in the school world, really anywhere, but definitely in the school world for sure.
What about motivation for teachers?
So motivation for teachers comes from, for me, a lot of different places. For me, it comes from a purpose. I have a purpose in what I do. And I don't focus on the past so much because the past is going to drag you backwards. I don't want the pull of the past to drag me backwards. I want my purpose, which is the future. I want my purpose to pull me forward, right? And so my purpose is very clear. I have a very clear vision of what I want to do and how I want my classroom to look. And that for me provides me with a challenge. And when I feel challenged, I feel productive and I feel fulfilled and I feel like I have a meaningful existence and I have a purpose to my life when I feel challenged. And so that's where my motivation comes from. So for every teacher, it's a little bit different and it doesn't have to be the same, right? I don't, like, for me personally, if I'm coaching you, I don't care what gets your engine going in the morning. I don't care what motivates you. If it's thinking about a chicken sandwich or your purpose in life, whatever it is, it makes no difference to me what gets you out of bed in the morning. But as long as you know what your purpose is and you have a clear vision, then that is going to help you get out of bed in the morning and be the best person that you can be and to show up in a very strong way for your students. And that's what they need. That's what they deserve. And the world, really, it's not just our students, but the world deserves for our educators to be at their best, to feel their best, and to perform at their best every single day. That's what the world deserves. Because to deprive our best, I mean, it's not just teachers, it's business people, it's just who we are as individuals. If we're depriving people of our passion, of our gifts, of our purpose, of our knowledge, of our expertise, if we're depriving society of that information, then that is really a crime against humanity, right? We don't want that. We don't want that at all. So the motivation for every teacher is going to be different, but for me, it's really tied to having a clear vision and a clear purpose. So.
Yeah, you mentioned like the teachers showing their past. What do you mean by their best? Is it their technical knowledge and the methodology, or is it their, I don't know, their personality and their being funny and having a good relationship with the students?
That's such a great question. So when I say teachers are at their best, right? Teachers for me are at their best when they're confident. Teachers are at their best when they're supported. Teachers are at their best when they're knowledgeable. Teachers are at their best when they're prepared. Teachers are at their best when they know how to respond to situations that are going to occur in their classrooms. That's when teachers are at their best. So when you can show up to work feeling confident in your ability to handle and navigate through these complex situations, then that's one way that you can be at your best. When you show up to work prepared, you are on point with your lesson plans. You know exactly how you want to execute things. I'm not saying you're going to know everything, right? Because nobody knows everything. But when you show up to work prepared and you know what you want to accomplish and you're mission oriented, you've got a mission, right, that you're on, and you know what you want to do and how you're going to get there, and you're prepared for that, then wonderful opportunities and wonderful experiences and wonderful relationships and moments with your students and your colleagues and everyone, those things are going to start happening naturally because now you're attracting it, right? What we have in life, what we do in life is a direct result of what we attract, right? And so if we're down and out, we're low confidence, we're feeling defeated, we're feeling discouraged, right? Then one step that we can take is to find someone, it doesn't have to be me, it could be anybody, right? But to find someone who excels in what we are struggling with, find someone who's excelling in that and doing well, and go talk to that person and learn from that person. That's one way that we can sort of combat that. But when teachers are feeling defeated and discouraged, it really hurts my heart. I feel just absolutely terrible. But the thing is that the great news is that there's solutions to these problems. There are very simple solutions to these problems. But see, what's happening is that we're overlooking them because the problem is too overwhelming, right? And most of the time, it's just about taking that next step and giving the teacher or the manager or the student or whoever, the parent, giving that person the next step is really all that it takes to putting them or to turning that tide and putting them on the direction and the path to success.
So my next question is like teachers are humans and the human are not perfect 100% all the time. You know, like as the novel says, we are not machines. When will the teacher's weaknesses be forgiven and be accepted as normal?
Oh, that is, I just absolutely love that question. Wow, thank you so much for that. I appreciate it so much because this is a topic that does not get talked about enough, right? Teachers have the hardest job. I don't know anybody who has a harder job than a teacher, to be honest with you, on a day-to-day basis, right? We are dealing with colleagues, we're dealing with parents, we're dealing with students and administrators and all different kinds of things. We're dealing with hundreds of people every single day, every day. And so teachers, especially the teachers of the younger students, right, especially in elementary school, when they walk into the building, they are on. They are on from the moment they walk in to the moment that they step out of that building. They have to be on. There's no time to just relax and to just chill and kind of just reflect and think things over. There's no time for that. And so it is, teaching is such a critically challenging job that we have to give teachers leeway to grow. We have to give them space to make mistakes, right, in their classrooms with people. And we have to, not forgive. Forgive is sort of not the right word here, but we have to really support teachers in their growth, right? And that's one thing I love about the place where I work, is because I have so much autonomy that I have all the space in the world to be able to grow into the teacher that I want to be. And I'm supported in that. And so whenever I make a mistake as a teacher, I own it, right? I own my mistakes. I can go to the parent, I can go to the student, I can go to the administrator, and I say, I made a mistake. That won't happen again, right? Or I apologize. And I admit it, right? I admit it. And so because we have so much support in our community, when that happens, I don't feel defeated and I don't feel discouraged. I feel uplifted because I know that the people who I'm around and the people who I'm surrounding myself with, they understand the mission that I'm on, and they understand that there's a bigger purpose to all of this, and that there are going to be mistakes along the way, right? And so because I have that support, I feel very confident in myself to be able to make mistakes. And there are days, believe me, there are plenty of days where I'm teaching my lessons to my kids, and the first thing that I'll tell my students when they come in the door and the bell rings, I'll say, guys, I'm not very good at this yet. I don't feel 100% confident in my ability to do X, Y, Z. I'm going to do it anyway, and I'm going to give it my best shot, but I just want you to know that going in. And what that does is it allows the students to relax a little bit, because they know that I'm doing the best that I can, and I'm going to accept them for where they are in the moment. And because I accept my students for where they are in the moment, they are going to be willing to accept me for where I am in the moment. And they're going to be okay with me kind of maybe stumbling over my words, or maybe having to backtrack a little bit or switch gears or whatever. But I go in letting them know that on these days where I'm trying something new or whatever. And a lot of times I'll even let the administration know, all right? I'll let the administration know, hey, Mr. So-and-so or Miss So-and-so, I'm trying something new in my class. I would like for you to come in, and if you could watch this lesson and give me your feedback, I would greatly appreciate that, so that the next time that I do this, I don't make the same mistakes, or, whatever the case may be. And so looking at it from that kind of an angle has been really helpful for me, and to feel supported in that way has really helped me to grow into the teacher that I want to be. And, 5 years from now, I'm in year 8 right now, 5 years from now, who knows what teaching is going to look like 5 years from now, but I know that I will have failed my way to success, so to speak, because whenever you're trying to do something big with your life and you're trying to really have a huge impact on people, you're going to fail, right? You're going to fail all the time, over and over and over and over again, right? But the key is being able to get past that, right? You can be put down, but you can't stay down, right? You can fall down, but you can't stay down. So that's kind of how I look at it. And again, there have been days where I thought that I had a good grasp on the lesson. Maybe I thought that I could do it, but it didn't go so well. And the next day, I've literally gone into my classes and said, hey guys, yesterday's lesson did not go the way that I wanted it to go. And we're going to do it again. And I'm going to do it better today. I'm going to do it much better today because I know where I went wrong, and we're going to do it again. The exact same stuff, but again, but it's going to be better. That's happened to me. I think I know it happened last year, and I did it the year before that too. So being able to fail without feeling discouraged and defeated is a huge thing. And teachers need room to grow, and everybody, but communicating that message with your students and your parents and your teachers is a big part of that.
My next question related to this point is that you mentioned that the teacher should be prepared, should be perfect and shining. What if the teacher comes really prepared and really shining, and then the students don't reciprocate this emotion or don't react the way the teacher wants, you know,
Exactly.
And then the exact result or the planned result does not come out? What do you think?
Yes, that's such a good question. So the one thing that's really key here is being able to read the emotions of your students, to pick up on their emotional signals, right? And so I don't make it a habit. Some people do, and it works for them. But for me, I don't make it a habit of making a huge deal out of a lesson plan. So for example, on the inside, I might be just beaming. I might be so happy we're doing this one thing today, and I'm super excited about it. But me personally, I don't try to make a big deal out of it with my students, because in my particular situation, I know that the higher I am and the higher I put this lesson plan on a pedestal, the further I have to fall, right? So what I'm looking at when my students come in the room, I'm reading their emotional energy. Maybe I'm excited, but maybe they had a really bad night, right? And so what do I need to do? Well, I need to switch gears, because it would kind of be sort of selfish of me to say, well, I'm happy, so all of you guys need to be excited and happy with what I'm doing in the classroom, right? That would be kind of weird. It would be weird in a classroom. It would be sort of weird in a relationship, right? Imagine if you were dating someone and you had the best day at work ever, and then you come home and then your significant other is on the couch crying because they had the worst day ever. And you go over to your significant other and you say, I just had the best day ever. And you start telling them about your fantastic day, but your spouse is sitting there crying and really upset, right? So it's really imperative that we're reading the emotions of our students before we go into a lesson, right? Number one, we want to read those emotions. Number two, on the reverse, right? We might be doing a lesson plan that we're not super excited about, but we don't want to transmit that energy to our students, right? So we wouldn't want to, I know a lot of teachers who apologize, right? They apologize for the work that they do. They'll say, okay, I apologize. I'm sorry that we have to do this activity today. It's not the most fun activity, right? You don't want to transmit that energy to your students. My philosophy is to be neutral, right? To be neutral, not to be super up or super down, but to just be neutral. That's kind of how I operate. But so it really is tied to reading the emotions of the students, and also not being super negative about a lesson or super positive about a lesson, because either way, it's kind of an extreme, right? And I don't necessarily want a ton of extremes in my classroom in that way. There's a time and a place for it, but not in that way, because the emotions of my students is more important than how I feel about a lesson plan. That's kind of how I see it. Now, in some situations, there's definitely a time where you want to be super enthusiastic about your lesson plan, because sometimes your students will come into your class and they're like this. They're tired, they're unmotivated, they're sad, they're frustrated, whatever the case is. And you've got to be the person to pick them up emotionally. So you've got to be super animated, and you've got to be exciting and fun. And what that does is it takes the attention away from the negative for a moment and allows the student to kind of put some distance between themselves and what's going on, and just focus on learning, right? There's a time and a place to be super amped up in the classroom. And I know one teacher, he's a physical education teacher. He's so amazing. He works with these elementary school students. And he knows the importance of buy-in. He's got to have the buy-in of his students when he does a lesson on bones and muscles and nutrition and all this stuff. He's got to have their buy-in because he's working with little kids. And so what he'll do is he'll go into his class every day and he'll say, guys, we are getting ready to have the best day ever, right? And that's how he starts his lessons, right? So it depends. Again, it's based, all of my coaching and everything is based on the uniqueness of the situations that the teachers are in. But in general, my rule of thumb is look at, like, especially if you're teaching the higher level students, or like in terms of age, really try to read their emotions and pick up on their emotional signals. And that will kind of tell you and guide you in which way you need to go. But you have to first be able to read your audience.
My next question is, like most educational programs and the trainings do not cover all the practical technicalities inside a classroom, or the steps that a teacher should be prepared with inside the classroom. And then you are asking the teacher to be perfect and well prepared. How can the teachers gather all of these practical steps in their lessons and in their classrooms while they haven't been trained enough and they haven't been exposed to these ideas before?
That is so true. And honestly, if I can just be candid and completely honest, a lot of that boils down to leadership, right? The leadership is telling you one thing and they're expecting you to do another. That's not really productive for either party. And so for me, in my coaching program, I've worked with teachers who've got more experience than I do. I've worked with a teacher who's been teaching for 15 years. And I just worked with another teacher who's a brand new teacher, has never taught a day in her life, worked with her. And then I just got done working with a teacher who she's in her third year. She's in her third year teaching. So there's all teachers, regardless of what year you're in, are dealing with that exact same problem, right? They're dealing with that exact same conflict. And so my suggestion for any teacher is, to first find someone who is excelling in what you want to do, right? So if you don't know how to start your lesson plans, you don't know how to teach effectively, you don't know how to assess effectively, or relate with your students, or whatever, you don't know how to build relationships, you don't know how to do these things, start with one thing, right? It's always best to start small and then build, right? So find a person who is excelling at what you do, and they are going to be able to give you some ideas and some suggestions, if you're open to feedback, to making your class better. I also suggest being observed, right? Being observed by people. So in my classroom all the time, I want people to come into my classroom anytime. I've had people come into my virtual classroom and watch me teach live. I've had teachers come in, or teachers, principals come into my physical classroom, like the one I'm in right now, and watch me teach and give me feedback. And that's been tremendously helpful, because I get their feedback after the class is over, and then I can implement it the next day. So that's kind of a big thing. But I do agree with your point that teachers are coming into these schools and they are notoriously unprepared for what they're about to see and what they're about to face, right? And so that's why I would highly advise getting a mentor or a coach, or someone who's really succeeding, right? Somebody who's in the classroom, someone who's doing it every day, someone who knows what you're experiencing, someone who has been through it, been there, done that, and they can help you navigate these situations. So for me, I hired a consultant. For me, I have a consultant that I talk to. I can be completely open and honest with. I can explain any kind of issue that I'm having. If I don't know how to navigate it or fix it myself, I can go talk to this person. And so I'm also that person for some people as well. Some people hire me and they say, hey, these are the things that I'm struggling with. What can I do? And we work through that together. So it's unfortunate. It's definitely unfortunate that teachers are a part of these teacher education programs that are not preparing them for what they're facing in the classroom. But it's not about focusing on that. Again, we want to turn the tide, and we want to focus on what's the next step for me, right? What's the next step for me as a teacher? And so it's going to depend on the problem and the teacher and their situation that they're in, the school that they're working, the environment, the age of the students. There's a lot of factors. It's very complex, but depending on all these factors, if you find the right consultant or the right coach for you, then they can really help you make strides in your teaching. And they can give you very specific techniques and specific maneuvers, things to say, things not to say, example lesson plans, things like that, that show you what you can do. And what that does is it opens the teacher's eyes to a whole new world of possibilities, right? Most teacher education programs really focus on theory. They don't focus on practical steps. And that's kind of where the struggle is for teachers, is when they go into the classroom, they're full of all these theories, but they don't know how to practically manage the situations in reality, right? And so that's sort of what my program does, is it teaches teachers how to navigate this complex world that we're in. We talk about lesson plans that don't take a ton of time to plan, right? Because teachers don't have a lot of time. So we focus on that. We focus on low prep lessons. We focus on activities that are going to have a high impact in their classrooms, lessons that are going to produce results in the students and get the kids excited about learning, and they're going to be motivated, but it's also going to preserve the teacher's sanity, right? And that's really important. Now, as far as the leadership is concerned, the leadership of the school systems 100% should not expect perfection of the teachers. If they are expecting perfection of the teachers, then they are going to have to expect perfection of themselves, right? And if they can't expect perfection of themselves, then there's no way that they should be putting that on other teachers without providing the necessary scaffolds and supports and ideas and coaching. If they're not providing that, then they should never expect for any teacher to be excelling at a high level, right? And so that's the reason why I advocate for teachers to take their professionalism, to take their careers into their own hands. Take it in your own hands. Don't lean on anybody else, right? Be self-reliant. That's how I kind of see it, is be self-reliant and hire and talk to the people who you need to talk to, and surround yourself with people who are successful at what you do and have great ideas and high motivation, and they have high levels of passion and great ideas, right? Hang out with these people. Talk to these people. We have Zoom now, right? Where you can talk. They don't have to work in the same building as you. They can be across the world. It doesn't matter. But find these people, seek them out, and build a team and a network of people that are going to help you and lift you up and give you practical ideas and advice that's going to help you in your classroom. It's not about, right, saying like, oh, you're the greatest teacher ever, high five. It's not about that. No, that's just delusional, right? We don't want that. I'm not trying to build somebody up and give them a ton of affirmations just for the sake of building them up. No, where true confidence comes from the ability, it comes from your level of preparedness. Confidence comes from that. Confidence also comes from your knowledge. Confidence comes from experience. And confidence comes from knowing that you have the support system to help you navigate through these situations. So if you are in a situation where you're unsure of where to go next, then go find the people that can help you, right, navigate those situations and talk to them. That would be step one, right? But as far as the leadership is concerned, they should definitely not expect perfection of their teachers. But that does not absolve the teachers from the responsibility of showing up strong and being prepared and being the best that they can.
What else would you like to say?
I would say that teachers, if you're having any struggles and you need help, contact me, right? You can contact me at turningthetideteachables@gmail.com. You can go to my Facebook page, Turning the Tide Teachables. It's public. You can join. I'll accept you right away. And I'll have my website built for you, and we will provide professional development opportunities. We will provide whatever you need in your individual circumstances to try to help you navigate these situations. And also, don't feel defeated. So one thing I want to tell teachers is don't feel defeated and don't feel discouraged, because there are solutions to these problems that you're having. There are solutions. You just have to get serious about finding them, right? And talking to the right people. That's one thing. And another thing is to be self-reliant. Don't rely on other people, leaders, whoever they are, don't rely on other people to provide you with what you need. You need to be resourceful and go get what you need. Try to be 10 steps ahead. That's how I look at it. I don't rely on anybody else in my teaching. If there's something that I want, I go get it, right? And I can ask for school money or funds to purchase something for me. There's nothing wrong with that. But I'm going to make sure that if I envision something from my classroom and I want it badly enough, I'm going to figure out a way to do it, right? So be determined in that way. And definitely don't feel discouraged or beat up. If you do feel that way, make sure that you reach out to the right people. If I'm not the right person, chances are I could probably put you in touch with someone who is, right? And so that's one thing. There was something else I wanted to say, but I forgot what it was. But if I remember, I'll let you know.
Sure. There's been an awesome opportunity talking to you, Knikki, today. Really grateful for these encouraging and great ideas for teachers and education.
Thank you. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.